This is a cabinet doors at a Cherry. I think there were 8 of them. Now is a template I use just to kind of get some marking lines before I started texturing. And I use the Arbortech mini grinder. Great tool. Makes fast work of kind of smaller like textural settings and capabilities. So I could have done it with hand chisels, but 8 doors is a lot, and it's better to knock it out quickly. It's about making a living, right? So here I go. I'm just using it to kind of do, I don't know, like a stippled kind of textural thing. It's actually a little trickier than it looks. It looks like I'm just randomly throwing down, and I am. And this is really counterintuitive to how I usually sculpt and do textural work. Typically, my stuff is very refined and very thought out. And this, in order to get this look, the idea is for it to be random. But if you're not paying attention, you can start looking a little too automated. So, what I did was I just kind of did like, a circular motion that was random, and then I go back over just an eyeball it where I felt like maybe, there were some spots that could use an extra little dip or hit above the blade once or twice. You can see me doing it there, just to try and create like that look that I wanted. So some of this was just, actually most of it was just eyeballing and getting it where I liked it and was happy with it. And with any sculptural, textural type endeavor, I'm typically going to be a big fan of knocking all of it out in one run. And what I mean by that is, if I were to do 2 doors and step away for a week and come back, I could hold the tool differently. Now, in this exact textural styling, probably wouldn't make a huge difference, but I just have the habit of I'm holding the tool a certain way, my body is postured in a certain way, so I knock out all of it typically in one long sitting or as many sittings in a row, with some sleep in between. And that way I know that there's consistency not only in the tool, but in the way I'm using it, holding it, the angle at which, my hands are, positioning it. Here you can see I'm just kind of randomly just getting some waves in there and then going back and kind of just evening it out. So it's a weird style that I really enjoyed doing. It's the first time doing this. But it requires a lot more thought than it looks like. I think by this one I was on the 3rd or 4th one, so I had a pretty good groove going. And that matters. At this point in the job, I'm just getting the outer portions of that door, you can see. And then I'm going to move on to using a gouge to create the texturing from the center on out. And I left that kind of outer shell uncarved just as a negative space that kind of helps sets it visually. So here I am with my gouge, and I'm just going at it. And this is a tricky thing to do. So when you're working with a fixed central point and you're going outward in direction from 360 degrees, you have to stay mindful of every time you push that gouge in the wood in a direction, it needs to either be moving directly towards that center point or perfectly away from it. And perfect is subjective here. We're talking about just quick hand tool use. But the easiest way to accomplish this visually is going from the center out. Unfortunately, the grains didn't allow me that option at times. It was easier to go from outside in because I was going cross grain. So here I am dyeing black. I dye a lot of my stuff with India ink. I find it to be, the color is much richer, and just it sets better. And as I seem to like this theme of being counterintuitive to how work should be done, the trick to this is knowing your species, because different wood, grains open up differently. With cherry, I could have probably gotten away with a higher sanding grit, but typically 80 to 120 is as high as I'll go to finish these out before going into dye. And the reason is because the higher grit I go, the more tight and sealed up those grains get, and it won't absorb the ink. So a lower grit means it soaks it. The downside to that is it means you're going to be using a lot of clear coat. So they turned out really good. These doors were spectacular. I'm pretty sure I'll be doing more of these in the future. I've already had a lot of inquiries. But yeah, there's your quick hits.